Welcome to Mr. R's art class. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thumbs, subs, and ring that bell. Okay, so for this assignment, we're going to be introduced to texture. Texture is kind of that first step into being able to draw something that's a little bit more realistic. So maybe we used to be able to draw a brick wall with just a bunch of rectangles, but once we start repeating some extra lines there, we're actually able to make it look like that surface of a brick wall actually has a rough surface to it once we start drawing those extra lines. So we could have a rough texture or a smooth texture, or even a texture that looks like it actually has some spikes to it, or maybe a texture that has some more fur to it. So textures, being able to kind of add a little bit extra layers to a drawing to make it look a little bit more realistic. So texture is kind of, if you placed your hand on something, it has a rough surface, a smooth surface. So texture is kind of that feeling that you have when you touch different types of surfaces. So for this assignment, we're just going to be able to just trace your hand there. And you can just trace your hand, one of your hands. That's all you need to do is just do the outline of your hand. And in each of these fingers, we're going to be adding a different texture. Okay, so there's the hand there, and you're just going to kind of copy these textures. You're not going to trace these textures, you're just going to copy the textures that are already here on this piece of paper. So you're just going to figure out how you would draw fur, and you're just adding these different textures here to each finger that you drew. And so it's a process that is basically a repetition of a certain type of line. So you're combining line and you're combining texture. Right, so by the time you get done with this activity, it would look something like this one here, like this printout. And then for the index finger, you would just kind of draw these vertical lines straight up and down, and you would take a little bit extra time. You wouldn't rush through this, and you're just kind of following the path of your finger there. And then at some point these lines actually get a little bit closer, so you could draw some of these lines a little bit closer, and then you have these little spikes there to kind of make it look like it has cactus, or that appearance that cactus has. And then for this one, there's some scales, and so it's basically some long U shapes that are inside of different rows here. So these U shapes, once you repeat this U shape over and over and over, right, to create texture, the texture that we're creating is like scales. So it could be scales of a fish, it could be scales of a dragon, it could be scales of a made-up creature. Right, so you're just repeating that same pattern over and over and over and over. So for these bricks here, the way that we draw these bricks are going to be some horizontal lines. And so the way that you draw bricks is that you have, let's say that this is one brick here. That's one brick there. Then we're going to have another brick down here. Is that you offset these bricks. So this brick was here in the middle. Then this brick is actually going to start from the middle. And that's one brick. And then that's a second brick. Okay, so we have this first brick here that's centered. Then we have these other bricks that start from the center. And then so you would have these other bricks that are offset from that layer that's just above that. Okay, but to make these look a little bit more realistic is that we're adding these lines here, right? They're not all the same height. They're not all the same height there. But each side of a brick is a little bit darker, and then we have these textures here in the middle that are a little bit thinner. So just kind of pay attention to that there. And then you have these hatch marks that kind of go diagonal, and that's just to kind of add shadow to these fingers here. So you would just repeat these different textures, repeat these different types of lines here on these fingers, and that's kind of helping you to be able to draw something that's a little bit more realistic. So we're taking something that maybe we're used to being able to draw, like these brick walls here, as just regular rectangles, but we're adding just a few extra lines to kind of push those rectangles and make those rectangles look a little bit more realistic and more like a real brick wall. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And feel free to watch any of the other related videos.